Welcome to Inkscape for Teachers. I'm Geoff Phillips, and in this video we're going to look at creating the elements that go into producing a project network. This is a completed element containing many sub-elements, the boxes, the dots, the label and duration, the arrow and numbers at the end, all sorts of things. We'll look at those one by one and then how to group them and use them to produce a network. First of all, the line with the arrow on it. I produced that using the Bezier tool. I'll go to a blank canvas to show this. The Bezier tool, click, hold down Control to constrain to horizontal or vertical, click and enter. Click the Select tool, bring up the Stroke and Fill menu, Control Shift F, or this icon here. I'll just scroll down and under Stroke Style, change it to something a bit thicker, perhaps 0.5 of a millimetre. There we go. Now, while that's selected, I'm going to hit the Nodes tool and see this line segment has two nodes. If I want to put a middle arrow on, those only go on at nodes, all the nodes besides the start and end nodes. And there are other nodes besides the start and end nodes in this segment. So while the nodes are there, I'll highlight them, click one, shift click to select the other. They're highlighted in blue, and I'll click Add Nodes up here. That produces another node. Now when I produce the Select tool and click on the middle arrow, there's that, I think the small one's about right. It's applied at the middle of the segment. This is actually an improvement on Illustrator where I had to draw little arrows and just roughly position them in the middle or align and distribute. This one's automatically in the middle, which is good. So there's our arrow. Next thing is the nodes or the dots on the end. I produce them using a circle. If I click the Circles and Ellipses tool, Control Shift to try, you can produce ellipses, 2 by 1, etc. But try and produce a circle like that. I'm going to remove the fill by clicking the red cross in the white square. No, sorry, I'm going to put the black fill and remove the stroke. Shift red cross. Now I'm going to zoom in, Select tool, and then Control mouse wheel to zoom in, and Control shrink that down a bit, perhaps to about there. Press 1 to go back to 1-to-1 zoom. That looks okay, maybe I want it a bit smaller, but it's personal preference, I guess. If I drag that up here, it's not snapping at the moment. You'll have to check your snapping tools. This set needs to be turned on. And perhaps snap to paths and turn this one on. We're at snap to an object's rotation centre. I think we'll need that later. Now if I drag this up, it snaps to the cusp node. Cusp node is a sharp node, such as one on the end of a line segment there. Helps to zoom in sometimes when we're dragging small objects around. If I click on that and Control D to duplicate and then Control drag along, I'll let go of Control and see if I can get it to snap. I don't know why, but it should have still snapped, but sometimes letting go of Control and just moving it towards the end works. 1 to zoom out again, and there's a segment with nodes on the end. Next thing we might look at is producing the semicircular boxes that I use to put near the start of each activity. I'll click on the Circles and Ellipses tool again, and I'm not sure whether it lets me click up here. I might have to do this afterwards. Control Shift, that looks about the right size, and I see this little circle here. If I hold down Control and click around there and then let go, it goes in 15-degree sections, and click the Select tool, I get a semicircle. I'll take the fill out of that and Shift click the black to put a boundary back on. I've just realised that that's not closed. If I click on the Circle tool again, while that's selected, I can click on, I think it's this one, to close it up here. Select tool, and I'll reflect that in a horizontal axis, and there we have a semicircular box that we can put on the start of each activity. I need a dividing line down the centre of those. I'll just zoom in and click the Bezier pen tool again. I'm looking for the midpoint of that segment, perhaps it's not selected. I think it's this one here, snap midpoints, yep, so if I click that, click, control to drag up, double click or click and enter, select tool, that line looks a bit thin so I'm going over to the stroke and fill menu, control shift F to bring that up if you need to, 0.5, enter. Then while that's selected, I'll select shift click to select the semicircle. I'll go path, combine that into one entity. One to zoom out, and that's looking pretty good. I'm going to see if I can snap that on there. Sometimes you try to move things around and they try to snap back to other places. If you get it roughly right, you can always use the arrow tool, select tool again, second time, and left arrow to move across if you want it a bit closer. Or you could turn off all the snapping tools and just drag it easily without any snapping annoyances. Now I need some numbers, so I'll click the text tool, I'll just type out here 0, and if you want to resize, I'll zoom in, if you want to resize that you can, control to keep proportions, whatever. I'll just go back to what it was, maybe a little bit smaller perhaps, and drag it up into here. Bear in mind you might have to have 2-digit numbers, so I want a bit of extra space. Control D to duplicate, control drag it across there. I'll shift click both zeros and that semicircle and try and distribute those horizontally. Align and distribute menu, control shift A to bring that up, or this icon here. I find sometimes other programs you've got keyboard shortcuts, so some of these don't work, so you have to go to the icon. If I distribute those horizontally, that's this one, there we go, and it looks pretty good. I might click on the second one and change it to red, just click it once. You might think it should be shift red for a stroke, but the font is filled with a colour and it has no stroke around the outside of it. You can put one but it'll thicken it up, it's the same as bolding it, but you just have to click the colour without shift to change the colour of a font. Now I probably need activity labels. I'll click on the text tool again, A, 5, that's the activity name or abbreviation, and duration. Usually they sit underneath the arrow or somewhere around there, doesn't matter, they can sit here, sit here or here, anywhere, but I usually sit them about there. See, that snapping's a bit annoying. I might actually turn that off up here, and then I can drag it. Still snapping. No, I didn't turn it off. Yes, I did. It's this snapping here. There are a couple of sets of snapping tools that you need to turn off or on. I need another number at the end of each activity. I'll make that blue to distinguish it, and we'll drag it down to there. I sometimes prefer that a bit smaller. I'll zoom in and control drag it down a little bit smaller. 1 to go to 1 to 1, and put these little numbers here. Sometimes there are quite a few of these little numbers. You don't want them taking up too much space. And I think that's it. I'll just check back on my original file, the first one. Yep, that's everything I need. Now that I've got all that, I'm going to drag a marquee around all of it and control G to group. So that's one element containing sub-elements that I can use to build up a project network. I'll just get started on one. I won't do a full one necessarily, but just to show you, if I control D to duplicate, and then control drag along, notice it's not snapping there, so I might turn my snapping tools back on there and there. Now if I control drag that snaps there nicely. It might be this first one, we can double click to edit the text or click the text tool, but I might want this one at an angle, so if I click it, then click at any part of it a second time, see the rotation centre there. I want the rotation centre to be at the centre of this dot, and because I clicked this icon before, it'll snap to that. Now grab a corner, hold down Control to go in increments of 15 degrees, and there we go. You can continue to manipulate these parts of the network diagram to build up a complete network. Makes it quicker in the long run to have these units done beforehand. Just a quick word on editing these. I can click the text tool, turns into an I-beam. I can change that to B, change the duration to whatever it happens to be, and I can change these numbers in here depending on what else was in your network diagram. It might be 5 there, and then 5 and 7 might be 12 here. I'll just backspace over that, 12, click the select tool. So you can play around that and build up quite impressive network diagrams, publication quality. That completes this tutorial. Once again, thanks for joining us. Bye for now.